Welcome to Your Future Starts Now, the go-to podcast for extraordinary women who are ready to step into their next chapter with authentic confidence. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua, empowerment coach, motivational speaker, children's book author, and girl mom. Whether you're a corporate powerhouse or an entrepreneur, this show is designed for you. Your Future Starts Now is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards rewriting the rules of success for high-achieving women. Are you ready to get unstuck and step into your next chapter? If so, you're exactly where you need to be. Your future starts now. Welcome to Your Future Starts Now. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Desi Bartlett. Desi is passionate about sharing the joy of movement. As the founder of the innovative subscription platform, DesiBodyMind.com, she offers a holistic approach to health and wellness where individuals can access transformative content designed to strengthen both their physical bodies and mental well-being. As a women's health expert with advanced certifications in yoga, personal training, prenatal, postnatal fitness, and group fitness, Desi has garnered a roster of private clients that includes household names like Ashley Tisdale, Alicia Silverstone, Kate Hudson, and many more. Her expertise has been showcased on major networks such as ABC, NBC, Fox, Univision, Hallmark, and Lifetime. Desi is also a proud mother of two and an internationally published author. Desi, so happy to have you join us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Gia. I'm so happy to be here with you. And as I was sharing with you offline, I've been listening to your show, and it's so inspiring and so great to hear from so many people who are really stepping into their truth.
I love that. Thank you so much. It is so powerful, and hearing from other amazing people like yourself and sharing your stories that can really inspire others that people can connect to is just so beautiful. So thanks for being here. And I also wanted to just note, you had made me aware that today is actually World Menopause Day. It is October 18th. I had no idea. I think it's amazing. So October 18th is World Menopause Day. So happy Menopause Day. And it is, the purpose is to raise awareness and educate people about menopause. So I think that also ties in beautifully to our conversation today.
Absolutely. And I'll share with you, after 25 years of being out of school, I'm currently back in school, and I'm 5 months out from my PhD in kinesiology. And my dissertation is about yoga as a method of mitigating menopausal symptoms. So it's perfect synchronicity with today.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment. Good for you. And the world needs that, the work that you're doing. So that's amazing. So tell us, Desi, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what led you to the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, so I'm originally from downtown Chicago, and I was raised by a single mother who was a hippie, and she was a disciple of Goswami Kriyananda at the Temple of Kriya Yoga in Chicago. So that means that I grew up with meditation and mantra and yoga from the time I was a little girl. And then when I went to college, I was originally a broadcasting major and then a dance minor. And one day I was in dance class and my knee was just really hurting. So I went to the campus doctor and I said, I'm having pain and I don't know what's happening. And he said, you don't need to worry. You just need to strengthen your quad. And I said, what's a quad? And he said, go to the gym. And as fate would have it, that night I attended a talk by a beautiful speaker. Her name was Jackie Paisley. She was second place Miss Olympia that year. And I chatted her up afterwards and I said, the doctor said I need to strengthen my quads. And she said, I've got you. She took me to the gym, and my joke is that I never left. As soon as I had that first taste of like, oh my gosh, this is physical strength and power, and wow, this is kind of cool, I changed my major. I went on to get my degree in kinesiology, my master's in corporate fitness, and have just dedicated my life to health and fitness.
That's amazing. What a great story. I love how there was, sort of the universe was leading you towards a path and you followed. That's incredible. So talk to us about your most recent book, which is Total Body Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about the book and what led you to write the book.
It is a tongue twister. Total Body Beautiful. So I lived in LA for 20 years, and I had and still have celebrity clients. And I shared a lot of people, and I don't love the word client because they become friends, right? People
Sure.
that you spend so much time with. But what I found was that I shared a lot of these people with two other trainers, like over and over. We were always sharing them. Nicole Stewart is a Pilates expert, and Andrea Orbach is a fitness expert. And I, of course, come in with yoga. And so I was chatting with these beautiful women, and I said, hey, it would be really cool if we had a program for women who are going through perimenopause to understand A, what that is, and B, like how to navigate all of the changes, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical. So I spoke with the publisher, Human Kinetics, who I had already done a pregnancy book with, and I said, hey, what do you think? And they were on board, and we made it happen. But as fate would have it, once again, we started that project at the onset of COVID. So it became something so beautiful because A, we had time to write it, during COVID, but also B, it was really like a love letter to women everywhere. Like, you are the star of your life. Do we work with celebrities? Yes, but you are the star of your life. And how can we help you to feel strong and powerful from the inside out? And so that's really the message of it. And what I found in writing this book is that most women don't even know what menopause is. Menopause is one day in your life. It is the day that you haven't had a cycle for 12 months. So my joke is that it's kind of like your birthday, right? Before that, we're premenopausal. And the transition that happens usually after age 35 is perimenopause. And perimenopause can last up to like 8 years. But, what did we have? Like one sentence of education about this in high school sex ed?
Yes.
So this is where we really wanted to come in and explain all of this, like what's happening hormonally, what's happening in the musculoskeletal system, what's happening in your heart. So that was really why we wanted to write this book.
That's incredible. And so you talk a lot about the link between our physical and our mental health. And I love that you said that, perimenopause and menopause are not just about the physical changes. So I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So during perimenopause, we often have what I call the big three. So the first big symptom is vasomotor symptoms, so like sweating and hot flashes. That can lead to sleep disturbances because you're waking up all night kind of sweaty, which can lead to belly fat. So that primary cascade triggers emotional disturbances. Sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's depression. But what I see more often than not is this is kind of the time when our hearts just say, it's now or never, girl, like it's time to step into your truth, and it's time to speak what you need to from your heart. And I'm reminded of when I was pregnant the first time with my older son, Cruz. I remember my body was just screaming for sleep one day, like to the point where I had to pull over on the side of the road and take a nap.
Wow.
And it feels like during this phase, during the perimenopausal transition, instead of that like physical, go nap, there's this emotional, like, go step into your dreams, like right now. So that's where I am in my own life. And that's where I'm loving to help other women navigate, like, okay, how do you do that?
I love that concept. And it makes so much sense because so many women that I talk to that are in that sort of middle-aged perimenopause, menopause phase, do have that sense of what am I doing? Right. And what am I doing it for? Who am I doing it for? And do have that sense of a calling. And some of us choose to follow it, and some of us have a harder time with that. So I think having, amazing people like yourself kind of support others through that journey is incredibly beautiful and just so inspiring. I love that.
Thank you. And I've partnered with one of my best friends. Her name is Dr. Nataya Gwynn.
Mhm.
She's a naturopath. And so she and I started last year, and we've got another one coming up. We've started women's retreats. And so
Mhm.
what we do is we allow women to really understand their health from the inside out, meaning that she runs your labs and she tells you, like this is what's happening on a cellular level. This is
Mhm.
where you might need support with macronutrients or micronutrients or sleep or all the lifestyle changes.
Sure.
And then I hold space for, envisioning and really that time to kind of see what is the next step. Because you said the word, midlife. Okay, if I'm in the middle of my life, goodness gracious, I've got like another 45, 50 years ahead of me. So what am I going to do with that? And what is the vision?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. And I love that it's become less of a taboo kind of topic, and it seems like a trendy topic these days. We see a lot, especially on social media. I feel like there's a lot of great information now on perimenopause, on menopause that I didn't notice before, right? Like it just wasn't as prevalent. So I'm curious as to how you see that shift and that trend. And I think it's great that we are talking about it and that there is more awareness and information that's being put out. To your point, we learned, for 5 minutes about it in health class, 30 years ago. So I would love to know your take on, it's not a trend, but I would love to get your take on how you see this sort of evolving and why it's such a hot topic.
I think that if we look at who's in this transition right now,
Mhm.
it's Gen X. And
Mhm.
so as Gen Xers, we were latchkey kids and we were the ones who like stayed out until the television reminded our parents, like, it's 10 o'clock, where are your kids?
Yeah.
So
By the way,
yeah,
you have
exactly.
kids.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
So we had so much independence.
Yeah,
And there
for
was
sure.
also the call to like, okay, you kind of have to figure it out for yourself, right? And I feel like because our generation is moving into this stage of life, we're trying to figure it out. And because we
Mhm.
weren't educated, we dig in and we roll our sleeves up and we're like, okay, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And I've worked with and around celebrities for so long. I do also realize that there's a power there in terms of the sphere of influence, right?
Mhm.
So whether it's social media or just like attending a talk, if someone has a name and perhaps a look or a body of work that you admire, you might go, oh, hey, wait, how's she doing it? And maybe she can give me a few more steps.
Yeah.
So I think that celebrity is also bringing more attention to it. And I think that can be a really great thing because it's simply a spotlight. Like, hey, this is how we can work together and share the information so that we can all feel a little better and not suffer in silence.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because it is I think it's very true. I think it's very powerful too that this generation, this Gen X, like you said, we weren't as educated, we didn't have access to the information, or maybe it wasn't talked about, right? Like I think back about mental health and it was there. Not that it didn't exist. I think maybe we didn't know as much, but there was definitely sort of a taboo or stigma around talking about it. And so obviously times have changed. And so I think embracing that and also people who are willing to be vulnerable, right? And people who are in the media and the spotlight. I think about like Drew Barrymore comes to mind and her show and how she's so incredibly vulnerable and beautiful and open about her experiences and her life stories and how that helps and heals other people and helps people to connect is so beautiful. So I think that's very true. And I also see that to be true with really hard conversations like sexual assault, sexual abuse, where people, survivors are willing to speak up and talk about their experiences, right? And share with one another, but then also help educate that next generation. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Yes.
it's about supporting each other, but it's also about helping those that follow us, right?
Yeah. And to your point, education can help with symptoms. There's actually been
Yeah.
research that reflects that simply knowing and understanding what's happening in our bodies helps us through and it gives us the perception of like doing a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let what you said go without at least just a moment of to anyone who is a survivor of sexual assault. or who has shared your story or who has yet to share your story. My heart is with you. I see you. I see you. I see you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So yeah, I mean, I think it is so important that we can turn to each other, right? Instead of having to suppress it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beauty in that. Tell us a little bit about, a lot of our listeners are high achieving women, a lot are working moms. What are your tips for juggling? I don't really love the word balance, but what are your tips for juggling a healthy lifestyle, career, and family?
Balance is a verb, and it's not the static state. And
Yeah,
so trying to establish balance each day, it's like, whoa,
right.
which sector do I kind of move towards?
Exactly.
What I found for my particular phase of life, I had my babies a little bit later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so my kids are in school. I've got a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old. And so when they're in school, I'm working hard. And when they're finished with school, I'm with them and I'm fully present as a mother. So the way that I do it is I just try to make my work day their school day. And I find that to be incredibly beneficial because then I don't have to worry about like, oh, wait, I need to write this at night, or, oh my gosh, did my kids get this thing? And
Mm-hmm.
I just offer that for any entrepreneur or anyone who has a schedule that you can kind of dictate a little bit. If you can parallel your schedule to your kids, I find that super, super helpful as a working mom. Also, having a clear intention every single morning. I go to the beach every morning. I'm fully aware of how spoiled I am that I live in Hawaii now. I go to the beach every morning and I spend time in Mother Nature and I simply ask, show me, show me, show me, show me how I can be of service today. And
Mm-hmm.
I let that message come through and I let that guide me throughout the day.
I love that. And so it's incredible, that you have those opportunities. And I think it's great. I personally think about, the things that I am able to do as an entrepreneur, allows me to do so much more with my children and be able to serve in ways that I was not able to do previously in my corporate job. So I do relate to that. But, the reality is that not all women are in that position. And so, it is, I do feel that tension in clients that I work with who have a really hard time with that balance and the juggling. But I like what you said about, I mean, there are definitely themes that we can pull out of that, right? I think tuning into our inner knowing, our intuition, listening to the universe, really focusing on what's important to us. And also, I love what you said about just being present, right? When it's hard because we're always multitasking. We're trying to do a million things at once. But I do think that, being focused and present to the best of our ability when we're, working, and then the same and dedicating that time and our attention and our energy to just being present with our kids is so important.
And I totally get it, Gia. I've worked a corporate job,
Yeah.
and I've been in the office 9 to 5. I
Yeah.
will share, I did ask my employer at the time, I said, hey, can we switch this to 8 to 4? Because I've got
Mm-hmm.
kids. And they
Mm-hmm.
said yes. So
Yeah.
really just not being afraid to say, hey, I could be even more productive to this company if we switch this a little bit. I
Yeah.
think that those opportunities to speak up and again speak your truth can be really, really powerful and can be a win-win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think sometimes we're shy or reluctant to do that. But having those conversations, and I think people are having them more and more, and especially post COVID, I think with more flexibility, there's more willingness and openness in terms of schedules. So I think that's great advice too. So just going back to our perimenopause, menopause conversation, I love how we were talking about there's the physical symptoms, there's the emotional aspect, and other things that go along with that. What are some of the most common signs or symptoms that you see in, women you work with, or things that, you want our listeners to know?
About 75% of women have some kind of hot flash, whether it is a night sweat or during the day. And that's usually the classic symptom, right? Like, oh,
Sure.
all of a sudden it feels like the heat was turned on in my body. Also, if your sleep is getting funky all of a sudden, like you're waking up at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. and you're scrolling and you're thinking at some point I got to go back to sleep, right? But then you go back to sleep like 5 minutes before the alarm goes off.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign. If you weigh the exact same amount that you did 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and all of a sudden your pants are snug, it's a redistribution of fat and it tends to go directly to the belly. That's a sign. But what's fascinating to me as well, Gia, is that there's a list of up to, I think it's 78 symptoms that can occur. Anything from like frozen shoulder, dry skin. I'm thinking of like itchy scalp and then
Yeah.
hair loss.
Sure.
And of course, the mood swings. If you're snapping at your kids and you're like, wait, I love you.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Very common symptoms. Yeah, I think there are so many symptoms that we are not educated on. I think that it's important to be, like you said, aware of. And sometimes just that knowledge, especially for high achieving women, is such a helpful tool in knowing what's going on with our mind and our body, because I think a lot of times we become disconnected. And when those signs and symptoms do show up, it's very easy to just try to ignore them or suppress them or, take some medicine. But really kind of tuning into what's going on and acknowledging it and recognizing it, I think can be very powerful tool.
I'm going to share a super nerdy little factoid I learned recently that they now think that the Salem witch trials were women in perimenopause. That these women were having such like dramatic shifts in their bodies, minds, and hearts that they thought they were witches.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
now we're finally in a safe space where we can say, I feel a little crazy today. Like, I don't know what's going on. And we can say that to our healthcare provider. We can say that to our family members. And if you have a healthcare provider that's not listening or like patting you on the head and saying, oh, it's normal, there's a difference between normal and common. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. You do not have to suffer.
Just because it's normal. No, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. That is so profound. It's a great point. And I think a lot of times we do have our symptoms dismissed as women. I see it all the time. And then we sort of doubt our own experience.
Yes. Yes. And so if the first doctor won't listen to you, please go to the second one. And or if you feel comfortable, perhaps with a naturopath, if that feels right to you. I love blending Eastern and Western techniques for everything I do, whether it's yoga and fitness or my own personal health. We have tools, and we have tools from all over the world, and why not enjoy all of them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Desi, so let's think about, as our listeners, before we wrap up, I would love to think about like, what is one takeaway, one thing you want our listeners to do differently or to consider changing after they listen to today's episode?
I had a client years ago. I was teaching yoga. Oh my goodness, my schedule was nuts. I was teaching yoga at like 6:30 a.m. and then I would run home. I'd get home like 7:45 a.m. I'd shuttle the kids to school, and then I would go to the office, and I had this corporate job. It was like, woohoo. But one day, one of my clients said to me, she said, "Are you happy?" And it just stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, whew, am I happy? I think so. I was really, really happy personally with my family and with my work and of course with yoga. But in the office, I was feeling trapped, and I was feeling like I was giving too much, and I had let my own boundaries just like kind of go by the wayside.
Yeah.
And I had to find a way out. And so I made an exit strategy, and I spoke with my boss at the time, and I said, listen, I never wanted this to be my whole entire life. I wanted to be here for a period, for a chapter. I feel like I've done that. And I want to support you through a transition so that you can get someone else to do this job. And then I went on to create my own thing. Once again, I've done that many times. But my message here to anyone who's listening, who's just kind of figuring out like, what is this next chapter? Are you happy? Are you happy? It's a great place to start. And if not, or if you could be happier, where? And then we can deal with how.
Yeah. Such great advice. And thank you for sharing that story. I think a lot of times we don't stop to ask ourselves that question. So I think that's an incredibly powerful question. Are you happy? Where are you feeling that tension or that strain in your life? And really getting kind of clear and pinpointing, because I think it's easy for us to say, yeah, I'm happy. Of course I'm happy, right? I have this and I have that, but it's really tuning in, right, to that inner knowing and saying, am I fulfilled? Am I content? Which is different. And so,
It
yeah,
is. And you
it is,
feel it in
right?
your body, it isn't just that, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. No,
Yes,
really,
that's the
how are
kiss of
you?
death, the I'm fine.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. So really getting clear with yourself. And sometimes that's hard. It's hard to be really vulnerable and honest with yourself sometimes and admit that, wow, I'm not actually as happy as I want to be or could be. And, or I'm not fulfilled. And, because that's scary.
It is scary. And what I hear some people doing, especially as women, we want to take responsibility for so many different things. I
Yeah,
hear, but I should be. Or, no, really, I'm grateful for everything. And all these explanations. And it's like,
sure.
no, you can be grateful and still know that there's more for you.
Desi, I would love to know, we talk about success on this podcast and redefining success. So I would love to know from your perspective, how do you define success for yourself and how has that evolved for you over time?
For me, it's really being happy in my own skin.
Yeah.
And it's evolved for me in so many different ways. And sitting here in the city of Chicago, across the street from my grammar school, it really highlights it for me. I will share just very, very quickly. My mother, even though she was a disciple of this beautiful teacher, she lost her way and she had a pharmaceutical addiction. And so to know that I can provide everything for my kids that I didn't have,
Yeah.
for me, that's success. Like all
Yeah.
day, every day, whether it's being present or just listening to them and knowing that they feel safe with me, that's success.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And I think whether it's conscious or subconscious, I think anyone with kids has that same desire to provide things to their children that they didn't necessarily have or get.
Amen. And so
Yeah.
when I hold sacred space for people that I work with, I remember like everyone's somebody's kid, right? And everyone wants to be validated and feel that they're enough. So I help to create the container so that you can find that for yourself.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And last question for you, just before we wrap up, is, you have been through a lot of transitions in your life. I would love to just get your take on reinvention, personal reinvention, right? We talk about how we evolve and how perimenopause and menopause is also a great opportunity to think about, reflect and think about where you want to go in your next chapter. So, and like we talked about, that can be really scary and really hard for a lot of people, not just women, but, for anybody. But curious as to your take on, personal reinvention and how we can sort of break through that fear of the unknown.
So I go back to when I was in college. When I was in college, I really wanted to move away. And so I wound up moving to Mexico and owning my own gym and learning to speak Spanish in lots of different ways that I
Wow.
reinvented myself. And I look at like, okay, how did I do that as like,
Yeah.
a young woman? It's a little bit embarrassing. It sounds a little glib, but it's true. It was Tony Robbins because he made me write it down. I wrote down the 3 things that were most important to me. And I was able to achieve those goals. So write it down, identify it, be clear, write it down and look at it every single day. And it is that affirmation that will get you to where you want to go.
Oh, such great advice. And put it somewhere that you're looking at it every day, right? That's amazing. I love that. Desi, where can our listeners learn more about you, the work that you do, purchase your book, learn more about your retreats?
DesiBodyMind.com, DESI. And I encourage you to check out my website. There's a beautiful platform there. And what I do is I offer you the opportunity to choose how you want to feel that day. Do you want to feel flexible? Do you want to feel strong? Do you want to feel centered? Do you want to feel clear? You pick the word There's a body mind workout for you, and it is my joy and my honor to support you.
That's incredible. I love that, because it's really thinking about what you want your outcome to be, right? It's being intentional about how you're using that time, which I think is sort of a different way of thinking about it. So I love that. I want to thank you so much for being here, Desi, for sharing your insights, your expertise, and your personal stories. So powerful. And also thank you for the service and the work that you're doing and paving the way for women everywhere.
Thank you, Gia. Thank you for the opportunity to share. It's always a blessing to be able to connect with women all over the world, and especially on National Menopause Day.
Yeah, what an incredible coincidence, right? Because we had to reschedule this, so that's kind of funny. And of course, you can visit my website, gialacqua.com, reach out on Instagram at Gialacqua. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. This is Gia signing off with gratitude for your time and energy. Our mic drops, but the movement continues. Until next time, your next chapter is waiting. Take care.
That concludes another empowering episode of Your Future Starts Now. Before we wrap up, I want to thank this incredible community of high-achieving women. Your energy, resilience, and commitment to growth are the driving force behind what we do. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate it, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower high-achieving women just like you. And of course, share Your Future Starts Now with the extraordinary women in your life who are also on a journey of healing and empowerment. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, let us know what topics you'd like to explore in future episodes. Stay connected on Instagram at Gialacqua. I encourage you to carry the energy of this conversation into your day and keep on supporting the incredible women around you. Until next time, remember, your next chapter is waiting.